everybody, and welcome to Shay McGlasson and the Escape Hatch to Wellness. And hi, my name is Yvette. I am your host for today's episode. And what I thought I would do today is something a little bit different than what my normal posts have been. And today I wanted to share my recipe for tofu. Now, I gotta tell you, this recipe, I can pretty much guarantee will have you eating it like popcorn. That's how good this stuff turns out. Which for me, for somebody who used to hate tofu, I think it was, for me, one of the most disgusting things ever. And if you've ever had tofu where it's been kind of on that spongy side, it has this really weird texture to it. This does not have that whatsoever. So I think that you'll really enjoy the recipe. And I can tell you, if you are a parent who has kids who you really want them to get them off meat or make sure they have enough protein, this recipe will work. And if you are an adult who's looking for alternative lifestyle and perhaps even considering a plant-based diet, this will help to transition you from a meat-based diet into a plant-based diet. And it's it's actually vegan too. So this will serve vegans and vegetarians. But like I said, this will have you eating this tofu like it is with popcorn. So it is so easy to prepare. So what I'm going to do is my ingredients. I've got some firm tofu. You can also buy extra firm tofu, and you don't need to press it for this recipe. I know people will ask me about that, but no pressing. This is the 365, the Whole Foods organic brand, which they have been replacing some of the more well-known brands with their own version. I'm also going to be using some coconut oil, organic coconut oil, some liquid Braggs. This is a great seasoner, by the way, and you get your amino acids with it too. I'm bringing in some nutritional yeast, and this is also made by Bragg's organic. And then for seasoning, I'm going to be using some onion granules, and you can use this or onion powder, and then some garlic powder. And then last but not least, this new one by Frontier, it's a green harvest seasoning, and this is everything in it but the kitchen sink. So the flavors that run through it are really, really amazing. I do this in I do this in the toaster oven, so it's real simple too. It doesn't heat up the whole kitchen. And what I like to use is a stainless steel pan, and this one, if you can see, is really well loved. But the one thing I love about this is it has these little ridges in the bottom, so it's not really stick and it's so easy to clean. But you can see by the amount of marks in there that you want to. I've used this a lot. So stainless steel is the way to go, let me tell you. So what I'm going to do first is prepare the tofu. And I will tell you, on a very sharp knife to do this with when you want to open the tofu, because the liquid that they float this in can go all over the place. So I'll use my finger to guide the knife down into the container in order to pierce the, without cutting into the tofu itself, and then begin to drain the tofu. And then I'll finish off by cutting all the way around. And again, this is a organic tofu, it's non-GMO. And by the way, wheat and tofu wheat and soy are the two most famous genetically modified things grown today. So you really want to make sure you are buying organic and non-GMO. It's really, really super important. So with that, I'm bringing the tofu out, and it's going to be in like a little drippy square like this. And again, you don't have to press it. I know some people have this idea that they have to press it, and you don't have to. That's kind of like the old way of doing it. And I don't know, I like the fluffier texture of it when I don't press it. So cutting it, as you're gonna see, is a whole different ball game. So cutting your tofu, what you're gonna do is take your knife and you're gonna cut in about 1/4 inch size slices. So about this wide, okay? So I'm gonna start with that. So I'm gonna do my slices. It's like cutting through soft curd. And that goes out to my British friends who might be watching this at this point in time, as I'm slicing across the tofu all the way across. So now I have 6 slices across my tofu, and you can kind of see this way. And then from there, I'm going to separate it into 2 little stacks like this. And from there, I am going to then take these and break these into thirds. Okay, I'm going to cut those into 3. Very, very gently. And you want a sharp knife because you want it to be like a hot knife through butter, is basically how you want your knife to move through the tofu so you're not pulling ragged edges through it. So I'm going to cut that into 3. And then once I've got my 3s, I'm going to turn, so you can see my little 3s here. I'm going to turn it sideways. And this is where it becomes kind of fun. And you'll see how quick this is. I'm going to bring my pan around. And before I put my tofu in my pan, I'm going to take my coconut oil. Now for this, sorry, I don't use traditional measuring spoons, so we'll have to make do. I like to use a soup spoon. This is in favor of my, or honor of my grandmother, who didn't use them either. Funny little side story. My mom loved my grandma's chocolate chip cookies, and my grandma kept saying, I just use the recipe on the back of the Nestle chocolate chip container. I mean, that's all you gotta do. Follow those directions, Linda. Well, my mom kept trying them. They kept coming out soft. They were not the nice crunchy things that grandma made. So she said, you know what? I'm gonna buy all the ingredients, Mom. I'm gonna come to your house and we're gonna make these cookies together. Well, she found out my grandma didn't use a measuring cup. My grandma used a coffee cup. That was her 1 cup measuring. And when it came time for a tablespoon, a teaspoon, she used the ones you eat off of, you know, not the official, you know, French version of being really, really chef-like, right? So I'll take 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, and I'm going to drizzle these in the bottom of the pan, okay? And just a nice little zippity-doo-dah drizzle in here. And from there, once I've got that, I'm just going to, I'll use my hand, and I'm going to wipe and distribute the coconut oil evenly. Now I use coconut oil and not olive oil for a couple of reasons. Number one, because when I cook this, I'm going to cook this on 425. And when you're on 425, you have your oils heat up. And when it comes time for olive oil, for example, that will make your olive oil toxic. So you want to use either an avocado oil or coconut. But I like coconut oil, just I like the flavor of it. So that's what I use for my base, you know, the non-stick base. And then what I'm going to do from here, remember I've cut my tofu in 2 different directions now. I did the first 6 slices, and then I split it into 2 stacks, and then I cut the 3, right? Now I'm going to go across perpendicular, and as I go across perpendicular, I'm going to slice these little cube-like sizes, and they end up about like this size, okay? Very small, the size of your thumbnail, well, if you have a big thumbnail maybe. And then from there, I just start to sprinkle them into my pan. So you can kind of see how they're all following in without having any traditional direction or flow, and we continue with our recipe. What I want to try and do is make sure the tofu remains on 1 layer. I don't want to have a double stack of tofu, and I like to have them kind of separated so they're not all touching. So if you have a couple that land in the pan, you know, stuck together like this, just separate them when you get them into the pan and just kind of reset them. And then I'm down to my last cubes, and so as you can see up on the knife, so professional. And then I sprinkle them through the pan, la la la. And then my last bits, I'm going to finish off the sprinkling, and I'm going to make sure that they're all a 1 layer of the tofu. And like I said, I do it this way so that they're individual. As I said, you know, these end up being like popcorn, and when they're separated like this, they all cook pretty evenly. And the beauty of having them like this is they get caramelized along the edges, which makes them doubly crunchy when you go to eat them. All right, so at the end here, what my pan looks like is this. So here's my 1 box of tofu. So this 1 box of tofu in here. And I think this is what, an 8x9 pan or an 8x10 pan, something along those lines. I could look at the bottom, I guess, and double check. I can even still read it. Made in Italy, and I think it's 8x10, but it fits in my toaster oven. That's the most important thing. Now, for when I go to season this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Bragg's. It's the next seasoning. So as you saw, tofu like this. Now I'm going to shake my Bragg's across the top, and it's a light sprinkling of it, but what I'm trying to do is make sure that every piece of my tofu is coated in the pan and it's now turned a nice toasty brown. If you can see the difference in the color now. Some I didn't touch with the Braggs yet, and some have color. So what I'm going to do now is just go back and make sure that all of them are equally covered. Now, what I will tell you about Braggs, if you've never used it before, as I said, this is your liquid aminos, which really helps with your digestion. And you don't want to use too much of it, basically, because what's going to happen is it's salty, it's high in sodium, and it's delicious. It's one of my favorite seasonings, and I use it in my miso soup as well. But what you want to try to avoid, though, is the salt, and it's almost like too salty. So just sprinkle it. Again, you can see how nice and toasty brown this looks now. And there's a little bit of liquid that's mixing with my coconut oil in the bottom. So now for seasoning, I take my garlic powder, and I'm going to dust the top of my tofu with the garlic powder. So you can see here, just a nice dusting. And you can see why I don't use a measuring spoon, because I wouldn't get the distribution across the top of my tofu. And I literally want to make sure that I have touched every single piece of tofu with that garlic powder. Now, if you don't like garlic, then don't use it. But what I will tell you, though, is that using the Frontier garlic, it is a traditional, it's delicious garlic, by the way. But, I mean, garlic is really good for you. So why you wouldn't want to use it? Well, I'm married to a Sicilian, so that tells you. But I was into garlic long before I met him. And funny story to that, Tanya, my friend Tanya, who I'm sure is watching this, she was my roommate with one contract when I worked on Holland America. And we decided to go into this one area of Vancouver to have lunch on our turnaround day. And we decided to do this roasted elephant garlic that was served with this amazing olive oil and balsamic vinegar and cream gorgonzola cheese and little like ciabatta slices on the side. And so you would smother the cheese and the garlic on there, dip it in the balsamic and the olive oil, and then eat it. Oh my gosh, we smelled so bad. Our neighbors could smell our garlic outside of our cabin. We didn't smell it on each other, but funny story. So that part's dedicated to you, Tanya. So now with the onion powder, you can use onion powder or onion granules, whichever one is your preference. For me, they're pretty much the same. The granules have a little bit more weight to them and a little more texture. So same as with the garlic, I am doing a coating, a light dusting of the granules across my tofu. All right. Now for my last spice, I'm going to be using this new Green Harvest seasoning. And what I like about Frontier is everything is organic. It's non-GMO. You can buy your spices in bulk. I was first introduced to Frontier when we were living and working at the Amrit Yoga Institute. So it became very much a fan favorite of our household and have continued since then. Now with the Green Harvest, because I love this so much, and to read the ingredients, I mean, there's rosemary, everything green in here, moringa's in here, what else? Sunflower, you name it, it's in here. But it smells delicious and it's absolutely amazing. So what I like to do, because I want a heavier coating of this than what I did with my garlic and my onion, is I popped a little heavier distribution and I begin to do the same thing. I just coat the top of my tofu with it. Now, same thing, every little piece has some Green Harvest on it. And the last thing before it's going to go into the toaster oven is the Bragg's Nutritional Yeast. Again, this really helps, I mean, for your diet. It's an amazing complement to your vegetarian diet. I've seen people use all kinds of things with this. I mean, it really adds great flavor to pretty much anything that you're making. You know, even to add it to, let's say, panko and do a coating of some sort on, you know, whether you want to do the tofu a different way, or even for vegetables, if you like to eat fish, it adds a nice little coating to that. So what I'm going to do, this is a heavy cover, what I'm going to do with this one. So last thing I'm going to coat my tofu with before it goes in the toaster oven is the Bragg's. So as you can see, this is not a light sprinkling. I want a nice heavy coating on my tofu. Now, as I cover, again, every piece is covered. And this is also going to help to soak up some of the Braggs in the bottom, the liquid aminos, by the way. And it kind of looks like a dust storm blew into my tofu. So that's it. You cut your tofu up into your little cubes. You distribute or sprinkle some coconut oil on the bottom to avoid sticking. Stainless steel pan, and the reason why you want stainless steel, by the way, is because when I cook this, I'm going to do 20 minutes at 425. I'm going to bring it out. I'm going to turn it around a full 180 in the toaster oven and put it back in for the 20 minutes. After I've done 20 minutes and then 20 minutes, I'm going to bring it out and I'm going to fluff it. And to use a metal spatula on any other texture, any other kind of pot, you don't want to scratch it. So if you have a Le Creuset pot you're working with, this metal could actually scratch the coating on your Le Creuset. So that's why I say the stainless steel is the best thing to do this with, okay? And that will help to avoid any kind of toxic residue from your pans you're cooking with, because that will be a whole other segment, a whole other conversation, as a matter of fact. So again, 20 minutes at 425, turn it 180, 20 minutes at 425, pull it out, we're gonna fluff it, and then from there, once it's fluffed, it goes back in for another 10, maybe 15 minutes. It depends on how crunchy you want your tofu. But this recipe, like I said, it is so easy, it is so quick to put together, to throw in the toaster oven, and then go do something else around the house. And then what I'll do is I'll use this as a side dish with my brown rice and a nice green veg, some sauteed spinach or some asparagus, kale. And then also I use this as my topper to go on my miso soup that I serve with soba noodles. And that's phenomenal, just phenomenal. So there you have it, my Meglassen Escape Hatch to Wellness tofu recipe. Guaranteed fanfare from all who try this out. So thanks for tuning in to the Escape Hatch to Wellness. Enjoy the recipe. I'll put all the notes again in the bottom of the video. So it's all there with the ingredients, what to go to, and what to buy for yourself. And again, eating healthy is one of the pillars of the 5 pillars of wellness when it comes time for functional medicine. So enjoy the tofu and enjoy the video. And thanks for tuning in. So remember to like, share, and subscribe. Bye for now, and be healthy.